guiding you episode by episode into the world of tomorrow's pioneers and all the moments that have since gone on to make it the most disturbing children's show ever
Hydra
made.
agents.
And the further we fall down this rabbit hole, the darker it gets.
Therefore, it looks like Mickey Mouse, but this Palestinian children's character doesn't talk like Mickey or sing like any Mouseketeer.
Season 1 began on the morning of April 13th, 2007, with the inaugural episode, Farfour is Caught Speaking English. The program aired in a 60-minute Friday morning time slot that was often most popular with preschoolers and other young children, as they would be the show's targeted demographic. In the show, we are introduced to Sarah and Farfour, and much like the title would suggest, its premise centers around Farfour having been caught speaking English by his uncle Hazim, a character played by Hazim al-Sharari, the actual creator of the show, to which Farfour is chastised for, as his uncle and Sarah believe he should be speaking their native language of Arabic.
Farfour, إني سمعتك
This is
تقول
the order they jumped in.
باللغة الإنجليزية.
Hello. How are you, يا سراء? I hope to be.
نعم.
مالك يا فرفور؟ انت
Release
ليش
the
هيك
twins.
بتحكي؟ مش احنا اتفقنا ان نحكي باللغة العربية الفصحى؟ هذه اللغة يا سراء لغة العالم
Agency
المتقدم.
one coming?
لغة العالم اللي بيفهم، اللي بيخترع. مش هيك؟ لا يا فرفور، انت غلطان عشان انت بتعرفش ان المسلمين هم اساس الحضارة.
The episode then cuts to Sarah, who explains that the show will act as a nucleus for the reunion of Palestine with the land that they once owned.
أذكركم أننا نحن العظماء انطلقنا في هذا البرنامج لنقود هذا العالم، وستكون النوى بإذن الله تعالى من هنا من فلسطين. وسيلة صراء من أين بالضبط؟ من غزة؟ أم من القدس؟ أم من رام الله؟ أم من كل فلسطين؟ نعم من كل فلسطين.
Hey, big guy.
Leading to a monologue from Farfour where he states,
نحن رواد الغد سنعيد لهذه الأمة مجدها وسنحرر الأقصى إن شاء الله وسنحرر العراق إن شاء الله وسنحرر بلاد المسلمين التي تجتاحها هذه الأبناء القتلة.
The episode then ends with Uncle Hazim discussing the Iraq War, which was transpiring around the time of this episode's airing, to which he says, as you can see, they kill and slaughter the children and the women. Whoever followed the news yesterday could see the fetus and its mother. I'm sure you saw that, Sarah. To which Sarah agrees, with this line referencing a particular bout of fighting that had just happened in the days prior to the show's premiere. And though nothing too outrageous, this episode gives us a glimpse at the structure of the show, as it rarely followed a coherent storyline, and instead bounces around different political messages seemingly at random. But overall,
Avengers
Farfour is
Penny
Caught Speaking
Party,
English is
like that.
definitely mature, and probably too much so for the 3 to 5 year olds watching at home, as it mentions bloodshed and slaughtering children, with its political messages being extremely on the nose. But this was only the beginning, and it may very well be the show's most tame episode, as with each passing installment, things only became more and more
These niggas
unbelievable.
meet, they do the
Today,
thing there.
episode 2 of season 1 appears to be almost entirely lost, except for one brief clip that has surfaced in recent years. It's titled Farfour
They do their
vs.
thing.
Bush, Omert, and Condoleezza, and in it, we see a child call into the show to sing the hosting duo a song, but is promptly cut short due to its lyrics.
إسراء هذه الأنشودة مش كويسة، ليش؟ سامحة انشبه عشان فيها استسلام. يا إسراء احنا بدناش نستسلم وإحنا بدنا نقاوم العدو.
Angry that the child had even mentioned the word surrender, the two hosts shut down her song, leading to Farfour going on a tirade, where out of nowhere he begins calling out multiple political figures from rival nations.
إن شاء الله إن شاء الله هذه الأرض لأطفالي ورجالي ونسائي وشيوخي سننتصر يا بوش وسننتصر يا شرمات خلاص مع السلامة سننتصر يا موفاد سننتصر يا أولمر سننتصر يا كونداليزا
The show would then follow this up with an episode featuring
Well,
one of its most
yeah, I don't
iconic
need that.
moments. It's titled Farfour and the AK-47 and includes two call-in
I'd represent
segments.
Paul.
One where Farfour discusses how they will one day
That's
lead
Cap.
the world. As a child sings, "It is the
Yeah,
time of death, we
I
will
can do it.
fight the war."
You just can't do it.
This is then followed by another caller, an 11-year-old named Harwa, who sings a song about how Israel will answer for the incident that forced their people to
I'm not with it.
relocate.
Nothing? I realized that you are not worthy.
And according to the child singing this song, the answer to the Israeli problem is an AK-47, to which Farfour then mimics the lyrics by simulating throwing grenades and shooting one of these weapons, leading to this notorious moment that is both really funny, yet also deeply disturbing when you really think about it, as the show is very obviously implying that the only way they will get their land back and truly deal with this issue is by use of force, especially considering that just prior to this, they showcased lyrics promoting warfare and never surrendering to Israel, providing one of the show's very first
I
allusions to
control when your suit
violence,
starts,
which
so
will become much more common
don't
of a
do it.
theme as the episodes go by. And by this point, it's pretty clear that kids probably shouldn't be exposed to this kind of content, and the world was starting to take notice.
This program,
You
broadcast on
stupid
Muslim
stock.
television, tells its young Arab viewers to take up arms
We
against
have to
Americans and Israelis.
throw Ultron
But
now.
truthfully, the controversy was just
Yeah, we
getting
really do.
started. As by this
Still though.
point, yes, the show is definitely disturbing,
Okay.
especially knowing that there were
This-
kids
because he
watching.
killed
But all in all,
Brandon
many would
Straka.
argue that it's more comical than anything. And recognizing this, the showrunners
Straka?
seemingly grew unsatisfied with their current product. They didn't want kids just laughing along with the program. They wanted them to hate Israel, and they wanted them angry, upset, and willing to fight at a moment's notice. And so, they began doubling down on their ideology, with episode 4 taking a far more direct approach towards breeding anti-Semitism. The episode shows Farfour in a classroom taking a final exam before he is caught using a
he
cheat
broke the
sheet
old
by
man's
his
heart.
teacher. And in response to this, the mouse gives one of the craziest excuses you will ever hear in all
he
your
broke the
life.
old man's heart.
غصب عني يا أبو هانم، لأنه اليهود هدموا دارنا، ولما هدموا دارنا اليهود رحت دارنا ما لقيتش لا ابن ولا دفاتري.
In this clip, Farfour blames the Jews for forcing him to cheat on his test, citing that his home had been destroyed by them and that he had lost all his notebooks as a result. To which Sarah adds that they are wicked people,
Stay down,
but it's
kid.
still no excuse to cheat.
يا فرفور صح هم أصحاب سوء، لكن هدم البيت مش يعني حجة إنه مش مبرر إنه يغش في الامتحان.
Meanwhile, Uncle Hazim then goes on to say that they must study for their exams because the Jews don't want them to learn. Much like Farfour mimicking the AK-47, this would go on to become one of the show's first viral moments, as this particular clip would spread around the internet, shocking and outraging viewers across the globe. And with this came intense media scrutiny, with even the supporters of Palestine coming forward to condemn the show's messaging, along with the approach they had to such a young audience, especially by hijacking such a beloved character like Mickey Mouse. The whole thing clearly went way too far. So far, in fact, that the Palestinian government, the section not run by Hamas, ordered that the show be pulled from the air, as even they believed that it was quote-unquote the wrong approach. It was now creating an international outrage, considering that it was very clearly trying to teach children to hate Israel. But despite the direct order and criticism from all across the globe, the founder of the station itself would go on TV and proclaim that they were being unjustly
nigga.
targeted, before vowing to continue the show every Friday until their land was returned.
نحن نرد ونقول أن شعبنا الفلسطيني عندما رجع إلى دينه نصره الله سبحانه وتعالى وبالتالي لن نتخلى عن عقيدتنا ولن نتخلى عن إيماننا وسنمضي قدما في سبيل الله سبحانه وتعالى.
But despite this declaration, the challenges were far from over for the show, as just days after this, a rival political group known as Fatah would begin an armed clash with Hamas, which eventually led to the Al-Aqsa TV compound being surrounded by Fatah members and eventually seized entirely. And once in their control, Fatah would cut the broadcast and replace it with a pro-Fatah chant that would play on the network over and over again, until eventually Hamas would regain control of their building sometime later. It was truly an insane time period for the network, but believe it or not, the show had one more adversary that they would have to deal with. And this one was by far their most challenging, as they found themselves up against one of the most ruthless and powerful forces our world has ever seen: Disney, and specifically their legal team. During this time, the company had become aware of the show and their use of a Mickey Mouse-like character, with Walt Disney's own daughter coming out and condemning the program, calling it pure evil, with there more than likely having been legal threats lobbied against the show, as not only were they illegally using this character, but they were using him to spread anti-Semitism. It was blatant copyright infringement, and knowing the power that Disney had, there was simply no fighting them, and the showrunners knew that they had to address this issue before Disney dropped the hammer. Which leads us to Season 1, Episode 5, the likely premature finale to the very first season of the show, where they would handle the copyright issue of Far 4 in what was probably the worst way imaginable, leading to by far the most infamous moment in Tomorrow's Pioneers' history. In the episode titled Farfour and the Jew, Farfour is speaking to his grandfather, who shares the story of his people and the land they once owned, and in his mind still did, even going as far as pulling out a key and documents to the land.
الأرض أيام 48 هذه الأرض يا سيدي أنا ورثتها من آبائي وأجدادي نتمنى تحافظ عليها فرفور هذا المفتاح لما ترجع البلاد
Mockingbird?
لما ترجع البلاد تفتح فيها فرفور
Mockingbird?
هذا المفتاح
Why are you here?
هذا كمان وراك
I live here.
كمان الأرض إلنا فرفور هذا أمانة معك فرفور
And so does my kids.
Though after handing Farfour the documents, this happens.
أنا يا فرفور تعبان
You have 3 kids?
حاس حالي
You have 3
بالتعب.
kids?
حاسس
No.
حالي إني قريب
We
من
have
أرض
3
الربيع.
kids.
أتمنى يا جدي إنك تحافظ عليها أنا يا جدي أنا يا جدي
Hold
أنا يا
on.
جدي
Clint is a dad? Man, this world just gets weirder and weirder by the day, don't it? Oh my god, hi.
This was a far heavier
hi.
way of broaching this topic
I'm on
than the
to
show had used
Janet,
before,
you know,
as this time they were
Sam.
directly targeting the emotions
Nice
of the
to meet you
children
guys.
watching at home, as they're now seeing their favorite character crying on his dead relative before promising that he will liberate their land.